Hey guys, what's going on? It's Chris here again, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my thoughts on the debate of iOS versus Android after having my first real taste of iOS after my iPhone 7 review. If you watched that review, you saw I promised this video was coming, and here it is. So let's jump right in and say a couple things positive about Apple to start. Force Touch is really cool. It's not always the most practical thing, but I do really like it. Jumping right into where I want to go in the Settings app is awesome. Using it in the Quick Settings menu to select the brightness of the flashlight is actually really cool. And that remembers your setting, by the way, or pick how long I want to set an alarm for. That's really neat. And it doesn't exist in Android. With Android 7, there is a similar idea. It's just a long press instead of a force touch, and you get these home screen shortcuts you can select. It is really neat, but it's not as good for sure. It's a step, but definitely 3D Touch on the iPhone has the edge here, and good on them. It's pretty cool. Next up, let's talk software updates. On iOS, you can usually expect probably a good 4 years of software updates. That's kind of amazing, and it's not something you're going to find on Android. So I have to give a huge credit to Apple there as well. And now let's get into the real differences between the OS. I hate notifications on iOS. I think they suck. On Android, we get stacked notifications. So as you can see here, I have a notification from Messenger, my texting app. That's actually 2 conversations. I can expand that and see each individual conversation. And then I can expand that conversation and reply. And now you can see the original message and my response right here. And if he sends me another message, that'll show up there too in that conversation view. And if I don't want to see this anymore, I just swipe to get rid of this. And I still have the notification from the other conversation. That's great. On iOS, however, notifications just come in and they don't get stacked at all. Basically, it's as if I had like a personal assistant who just wrote down every time somebody tried to get a hold of me, like 1 a.m., you got a message from so-and-so. 1:30, you got a message from someone else. 1:35, you got a message from the first person again. And it shows there with the other person's message in the middle. It's not stacked at all. Everything just, it's like a log of events. And when you want to get rid of a notification, you swipe to the left and then press clear. But clear is the only button, so what's the point of that? Why can't I just swipe and it's gone? I don't like it, and I don't like that you have to use force touch on notifications. Like I said, I really like force touch, I just don't think it works there. Notifications on Android are just kind of amazing, and they don't hold up even in the slightest on iOS. The other big deal for me is on Android. You can see here on the home screen, I have the texting app icon up here to show that I have a notification. Right there. There's nothing like that on iOS. So if you're using the phone and you forget you have a notification, you're not going to see it until the next time you're on your lock screen. Oh wait though, if you have something on your lock screen and then you unlock the phone, that gets cleared not from your total notifications but from your lock screen. So now when you lock the phone, it's not there, and the only way you can see that notification is if you actually manually swipe down. So I forget I have certain notifications and messages all the time. The only saving grace for this, really, is the desktop notification icons. Those help, but honestly, I find them pretty annoying, and I just far prefer the Android approach. Moving on to a similar topic, quick settings. I don't like them on iOS. They're there. You can toggle like your Wi-Fi on and off, and like I said, force touching to get like different flashlight settings is really cool. But overall, they're just not that great compared to Android, where they're in the same menu as my notifications. If I swipe down once, I get the really quick settings like toggling on and off. But if I swipe down again, I get the detailed settings without ever even actually leaving this area. So if I go in here, this is my data usage for the month. I'm still just in the swipe down menu. I can go right back to where I was. That's honestly kind of amazing. Or I can see the Wi-Fi networks that are available, still just right in the swipe down menu, and it's so cool. Whereas on iOS, I'd have to actually jump into that app. So for me, that's a huge edge. And let's talk about one more related thing. This screen. I think it's dumb. I don't understand why we have like a media card. In Android, if I have a song playing, it's just a persistent notification. And you can see I've got some really cool settings here. Like I can even switch the song that's playing right from that notification. On iOS, I have a dedicated screen for it, which means if I'm trying to get to the quick settings when that was the last thing I looked at, it's another swipe. Or if I'm trying to get to that when the quick settings were the last thing I looked at, it's another swipe. On Android, I just bring down my notifications and I get notifications, quick settings, and media controls. It's really seamless and it works great. Also, this screen when there's nothing on it is just kind of ugly. Like, why is that still there? Let's talk about widgets, because that's kind of to do with the swipe down menu as well. On Android, widgets are only something that's on your home screen. So I long press and I can select my widgets here, and it's going to show up on the home screen. So there's my new Audible widget, and it's right on the home screen. In iOS, widgets only exist on this screen to the left of the home screen. But that's not such a terrible thing, because they're all in one consolidated place. And what's really cool is on iOS, when you swipe down from the top, if you go to the left, you get the widget screen from anywhere on the phone. I can be in any app and swipe down and get that. Not to mention this universal search. I use this all the time. If I'm in some random app, to just swipe down and do a quick web search. That is so useful. So props to iOS there. Each approach has its advantages and disadvantages. I like that you can put them wherever you want on Android, but I like everything else about the iOS implementation. If they would just add that on iOS, it'd be really cool. Oh, and one final thing about the swipe down menu. This is going to seem really nitpicky, and it is. In Android, I can swipe anywhere below the notification to swipe up, and it just feels really nice and smooth. On iOS, I can't do that. Like, I have to go specifically to this bottom chunk, and I don't like it. It just doesn't feel as good. So yeah. T9 dialing is something I use all the time. There's at least one phone number in my phone that I don't know the whole thing, so I just type the area code. And you can see on Android, I get the people who have that phone number, but I don't on iOS. And I don't get it, it's just stupid. I don't want to have to go and manually search through the contacts. This is such a fast way, I love that. Please add that, Apple. That would be great. Now let's talk ringtones. I love the way ringtones are managed in Android. So, in Android, let's go to my ringtone settings. Here we can see I can set the default notification sound, okay? Now if I go into my texting app, I can set the notification sound for that texting app, and I can set it to some specific sound, or I can set it to the default. And the special thing about when it's set to the default is it's not set to the same notification sound as the defaults. It's set to whatever the default is. So if I change the default, it changes this app too, but not the apps which I've selected a separate one. On iOS, I just have to select the sound for each app, and I really love the way Android does it, especially for alarms. I have a ton of alarms, and if I want to change the sound, I have to change each one on iOS, whereas on Android, just change the default. So yeah. And then if you've got any ones that aren't the default, they'll stay the same. Another thing I don't like, I think it's weird that iOS pushes you into the settings app for like the Facebook post sound or the Twitter sound. I think that's weird. I'd much rather just handle that in the app like it does on Android. And that's something they do for the camera settings as well. The recording quality, you set that in the settings app, not in the settings section of the camera app. It's just weird. It's much easier to find if I just open an app and go to that app's settings than if I have to go in the settings and then try and find the specific app I'm looking for, whether it's like the sound settings or the video quality. It's just, I don't like it. Siri is good. I find it's mostly as good as Google Now. I really don't have a preference between the two, other than that Google Now will let me pick which app I want to play music from, so... And in Android, that's actually another good point. Picking a default app is great, whereas in iOS, it opens whatever it likes for the most part. But getting back to that, if I use Siri here, how tall is Mount Everest? You can see the voice recognition is good and the response is okay. But if I do it on Android, how tall is Mount Everest? Again, the voice recognition is good and the response is good. The big problem is that Siri is so reluctant to stop listening when I'm driving, and it's not a problem I have with Android. Like, it thinks the background noise of the car is me still trying to talk, so it doesn't stop and execute the commands I've given. And I don't have this problem with Google Now. It's really annoying, and I don't get it, because I can be in the kitchen with the dishwasher running, and Siri will take a command and stop listening, but not in the car, which is the time I use it the most. Oh, hey, I accidentally triggered Siri. So, yeah, mostly Siri is good, but please, Apple, fix the thing where I can't use it in the car. That's when I want to use voice commands. Let's move on to the file system. Apple's insistence that the file system basically doesn't exist really frustrates me, and I know it makes it simpler for a lot of users, but for me, I have a lot of e-textbooks. I really like having a physical copy and a digital copy, and on Android, it's much easier to manage that and like which app opens it up, so it's a combination between file management and app preferences, but I can find anything on my phone here. On iOS, I just have like, here's a PDF file. This is the only local file you have because it's a PDF and we recognize those. And I've had such a pain trying to use the iPhone for e-textbooks. It's much nicer on Android. Volumes are another thing. On Android, if I change the volume, it changes the relevant volume at the time. But it also has this drop-down menu where I can select the other volumes, like increase the media volume and the alarm volume. And when I'm done, I just click out of it. On iOS, it only changes the relevant volume. And the only way to change the media volume, when the ringer is considered the relevant volume, is to swipe up and go to this media card that I don't like. And that's just really inelegant to me. The other thing is, once you do change it, you have to wait for it to fade out on iOS, whereas on Android, I can just click out of it and it'll disappear right away. So that's nice. Overall, I have to say, I like Android a lot better. So no, the question I asked in my review, am I going to stick with iOS? I'm not. I'm going to look into getting a Google Pixel if I can, which means another touch latency video. But yeah, it's not just my own preferences. I really feel Android is where the innovation is. Switching from Android to iOS feels like an older, less complete operating system that just doesn't let you do simple things. And you know, when I switched, I expected to find that iOS is better at some things and worse at others, but I actually found there were only things I disliked. Except Force Touch and widgets. Widgets are cool. And just to be clear, I'm not the type of person to hate on you if you prefer iOS. I don't care at all. If you like iOS, I'm just glad you're happy. But for me, if you've went years thinking that Android is only for people who want customization, that's not right. Maybe it was at one time, but not anymore. I truly feel that Android, out of the box, is much better, more intuitive, and with more features than iOS is out of the box. And then if you want to try and customize things, you can do that. Okay, that's it, guys. If you think I was way too harsh on Apple, let me know with a comment. I mean, I've spent about a month on this phone, but there's still things I don't know about it, so let me know your thoughts. If you liked this video and you think I can have an opinion that's different from yours and not hate me, hit the like button. If you really liked it, please subscribe. Both of those things would help me out a ton. And if you want to see another video, check out this one here. Overall, thank you very much for watching, and have a good one. See you in my next video.